everyone, and welcome to the documentary of the century, all about... No questions? Great, I'll show you around. Now, if you look beyond these trees here, you'll notice a lake. And you see, we've watched this lake grow from nothingness into a fully grown adult lake over the span of 5 years. Man, nature really is beautiful sometimes. Now, if you look right here, this is a tree. See, you can tell it's a tree because it's a tree. And finally, if you take a look right here, you'll notice this white, pretty flower. Now you see, if we pick this flower, we're gonna realize that, oh my god, it's a thing!
Pikmin, a series of games published by Nintendo all about these things. The Pikmin. Originally published in 2001, the series has seen 4 mainline releases across 4 console generations, as well as 2 spin-off games. These games are incredibly unique and stand out due to a couple reasons, such as their incredible gameplay loop, the endearing design of the Pikmin themselves, and also, one of my favorites, is that you are small. Like, around an inch tall type of small, which allows these games to create incredible set pieces out of rather mundane locations. Now, compared to other games I've discussed with you all, the Pikmin series hasn't been present in my life for that long, but good god has it left an impact. Prior to 2020, I was aware of Pikmin, but the only interactions I had really had with it were the data transfer animation from my Wii to the Wii U I bought on the cheap in late 2019, and a small Easter egg in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour on the GameCube, which I didn't know about until recently, but I had to have come across this back in the day given how bad I was at the game. However, I became much more interested with the franchise in 2020 as I began to rapidly expand my retro game collection. No, I don't have an addiction, I can quit whenever I want. So when I heard that Nintendo was releasing an upgraded port of Pikmin 3 on the Nintendo Switch, my interest was piqued. But apparently not piqued enough to pre-order it. Instead, when I went to Target the day after at least to pick up some supplies for a Halloween costume, which turned out great by the way, I decided that I may as well give it a shot. So once I finally got home, I booted the game up and never looked back as I loved every minute of that game. And ever since that fateful Halloween, you could say that I have become a real fanboy of the Pikmin series, which brings us to today where... Yeah, alright, fine, I might have a problem. Anyway, do you want to discuss gameplay? Because I want to. So, the main gameplay loop of the Pikmin series boils down to 3 steps. First, you arrive at your destination at sunrise. Second, you complete as many tasks as you can. And third, you leave at sunset, because if you don't, you might be gobbled up by the creatures on the surface, which isn't great for one's health, I hear. With only slight variations across the main series, this is the main loop of the Pikmin series, which sounds kind of boring, so let's add another layer on top of it by discussing the Pikmin themselves. These adorable little alien plant creature things are your companions, which help you through this adventure, and they can do a whole lot of things. They can collect items, clear obstacles, and even commit a felony. With the ability to have 100 Pikmin on the screen at once, you can amass a rather large army of these things. However, don't go feeling invincible because although the Pikmin are strong and capable, they are also incredibly fragile, which can lead to some, we'll say, interesting situations if you're not careful. Another thing about the Pikmin is that there are numerous different types of them across the series with different abilities for all of them, though we'll touch on that a little bit later on. So, okay, we have a day-night cycle and an army of plant aliens. What else is there to make the gameplay loop more interesting? Well, I'm glad you asked, because our third layer to what is turning into a rather weird cake analogy happens to be the most important layer: multitasking. Now, I can't really think of a way to explain this well, so let me just run you all through a scenario. Say you want to have your Pikmin build a bridge, but you also forgot a type of Pikmin you need to get something else done. Well, as the bridge gets going, you go back, grab the Pikmin you need, come back, and get them all to break down the wall that they need to. As those Pikmin break down the wall, you take the Pikmin who got done building the bridge and have them collect the corpses of their fallen adversaries. The ability to multitask in such a way to continuously maximize your efficiency and get as much done in one day makes the gameplay loop of Pikmin so much fun. And the best part of it is that each game toys with it just a little bit to add a new spin on the loop. Anyway, speaking of games, released in 2001 on the Nintendo GameCube, Pikmin 1 follows this little fella, Captain Olimar. Get used to him, he'll be sticking around. Hailing from the planet Hocotate, Olimar works for Hocotate Freight, which is essentially an interstellar trucking company. Anyway, he's cruising around space, enjoying life, and BAM! An asteroid hits his ship as he plummets to the surface of a planet known as PNF 404. Upon awakening, Olimar stumbles across his broken ship and the Pikmin for the first time, which allows us to repair Olimar's ship just enough so that we can traverse the planet, allowing our adventure to begin. Now, the main goal of Pikmin 1 is to find 30 ship parts, which have landed all across the planet in order for you to repair your ship and return home. This sounds fairly simple, and well, it is. But the real challenge of Pikmin 1 is that you are limited to 30 in-game days to accomplish your goal before Olimar's life support fails. This adds a lot of pressure, as any misstep may cost you valuable time, and God forbid you get a sizable amount of your Pikmin killed, because that will set you back quite a ways. And while we're on the topic of Pikmin, Pikmin 1 has 3 types of Pikmin, so let's go over those in the order of when you discover them. First up is the red Pikmin, which are immune to fire and deal a fair bit more damage compared to the other types, alongside being the most well-rounded Pikmin type in this game, and in most games, given that they are the first Pikmin type you find. Second is the yellow Pikmin, which, I'll admit, kind of blowing Pikmin 1 with them only really being able to be thrown farther, as well as having the ability to carry bomb rocks. Don't get me wrong, these are all very important abilities, but compared to the other Pikmin, they're just kinda lame. Anyway, our third and final Pikmin type is the blue Pikmin, who are the only type which can navigate underwater or even go in water without them drowning. Each Pikmin type can be found as you progress through the game and venture to different areas of PNF 404 alongside their corresponding onion. What's an onion? Well, these things are essentially the home of the Pikmin and serve as the location in which you can grab your Pikmin at the beginning of the day, gather your army of little plant aliens, as well as grow new Pikmin. Wait, how do you grow new Pikmin? Great question! You can either kill enemies or grab these pellets and have the Pikmin drag them back to the onion, which will then produce new Pikmin for you to pluck out of the ground. Anyway, let's get back to the meat and potatoes of Pikmin 1's gameplay loop, the ship parts and the 30-day time limit. As previously mentioned, there are 30 ship parts for you to collect, which you can find just out and about, behind a puzzle, or being guarded by an enemy. And it is your ability to effectively collect these that leads us to the 3 different endings of Pikmin 1. Our first ending, which I'm going to label the true ending, has you collect 29 of the 30 ship parts with a bit of time to spare, which allows you to access the final trial, which puts you up against the final boss of Pikmin 1, the Emperor Bulbulax. This beast of a monster can put up quite a challenge, but upon shoving enough bomb rocks in its mouth, you are able to collect the final ship part and let Olimar finally return home to Hocotate, with the Pikmin celebrating that Olimar helped them stand up against the monsters which inhabit PNF 404. Our second ending is the good ending, which has you collecting the necessary 25 ship parts and ignoring the 5 optional parts, which still allows you to leave the planet just without as much fanfare as the true ending. Olimar just ditches and heads home. And finally, our third ending has us fail to collect enough ship parts, which has Olimar try and take off, only to crash land and actually die. In the aftermath of this, the Pikmin try and save him by shoving Olimar into an onion, which turns him into this creepy Olimar-Pikmin hybrid. I thought I was desensitized, but yeah, I don't like that. Alright, now that we got mental scarring out of the way, what else does Pikmin 1 offer? Well, after beating the game, we unlock the challenge mode, so we may as well cover that now. So, challenge mode. The first side mode of the Pikmin series. Consisting of remixed areas from the main game, your goal is to grow as many Pikmin as you possibly can in one day. That's it. Similar to the main game, the challenge mode is still really fun, either in spite of or due to its simplicity. I haven't really decided which one yet. Anyway, with all that being said, Pikmin 1 sold around 1.6 million units, which might not sound like a whole lot, but for the GameCube, which notoriously did not sell well, it is actually one of the best-selling games on the system, and the third best-selling game within the Pikmin series. Now, although Pikmin 1 is quite rough around the edges, and good god are those edges rough, because the amount of times my Pikmin did exactly the opposite of what I wanted them to do, or just stopped to pick at grass, makes me want to violate the 1925 Geneva Protocol. It did spawn a pretty devoted fan base, which has followed the series ever since 2001, with it slowly growing with every subsequent entry. And it was this relative popularity of Pikmin 1 which would see it re-released later on down the line on both the Wii in 2009 and later on the Switch in 2023. With these versions releasing alongside a version of the game's sequel, Pikmin 2. Speaking of which, released in 2004 also for the Nintendo GameCube, Pikmin 2 once again follows Captain Olimar, who finally returns to his home planet of Hocotate, only to find that the company he works for, Hocotate Freight, is in severe debt after the loss of a shipment of golden Pikmin carrots to a ravenous space bunny. Side note, Olimar named the Pikmin after the Pikmin carrots. I didn't know how else to fit that in there, so there you go. So, with the help of fellow employee Louie, Olimar returns the PNF 404 in order to pay off the debt. To do this, Olimar, Louie, and the Pikmin must collect treasures, which are all worth a certain amount of Poco, the currency used on Hocotate. These treasures can be found across the surface of the planet, as well as in the vast cave networks that this game introduces. Aside from housing treasures, these caves also house multiple floors of challenges which require differing combinations of Pikmin to complete, usually ending in a boss fight. Like against this thing, the Water Wraith. This thing will give you a panic attack if you're not ready for it. And now that I've told you the main loop of Pikmin 2, I have to say this game certainly seems much easier than Pikmin 1. Why do I say that? Well, that's because in this game there is no time limit when it comes to days. Even the day and night cycle isn't as important in this game, because as long as you're in a cave, the timer is paused indefinitely. Though despite the lack of urgency you feel when playing Pikmin 2, that urgency is replaced by constantly quitting the game out of pure frustration due to how hard and downright unfair it can be. Now, why do I say this? Well, because this game takes the concept of your Pikmin aren't invincible and begins to laugh maniacally as the majority of your Pikmin get crushed by an enemy. Or they get electrocuted. Or something else happens to them. Really, the entire game just feels like a masochist's therapy session at times. Anyway, can't helplessly watch your Pikmin being killed without actual Pikmin, right? You should probably go over those. Now, Pikmin 2 retains all previous Pikmin types and maintains all their abilities from the first game, except for Yellow Pikmin, which had their Bomb Rock ability taken away as they aren't in this game, and had it replaced with invulnerability to electricity, which is pretty helpful because electricity just really sucks in this game. But now on to the new types of Pikmin. First off is White Pikmin, which are invulnerable to poison as well as poisoning enemies when killed. And second are Purple Pikmin, which are incredibly overpowered and kinda break any sort of balance this game had. They are significantly stronger than your average Pikmin, being worth 10 Pikmin when carrying items. They are also the strongest Pikmin type when fighting enemies and create a shockwave when thrown, which stuns enemies. Get it? Because they're fat?
Yeah, man, I don't know about that joke. That seems a little tacky, don't you think?
Now, despite how overpowered the purple and to a significantly lesser extent the white Pikmin are, Nintendo at least attempted to try and make them harder to acquire. Instead of getting their own onion, they instead are acquired by sacrificing other Pikmin to these candy pop buds, which is kinda creepy when you think about it, but whatever. There were also Bulbmins introduced in this game. But we don't discuss Bulbmins. Another thing which Pikmin 2 introduced was the ability to have multiple playable characters, in this case, Olimar and Louie, which you can swap between on the fly. This allows for all kinds of multitasking, which helps you get as much out of the time you have in each day, even though the time limit of Pikmin 2 isn't worth a darn thing. Anyway, what is it that you use these Pikmin for again? Oh yeah, treasures, that's right. So, scattered around Pikmin 2's explorable areas, but mostly within its caves, are numerous treasures to be discovered, which can range from fairly mundane items to pretty neat ones. Each item has a set amount of Poco that it can be translated into, which helps pay off the debt of Hocotate Freight. Though the coolest thing about it is that these items are actually licensed by real-life companies, which is just really cool. Is that a generic battery? No, that's a Duracell battery. Bad taste and all. Now, these treasures are really cool and all, but sometimes I have an issue appreciating how neat the treasures of Pikmin 2 can be, purely because your ship will not shut up. Constantly you have your ship talking to you for some reason about treasures or just random stuff, which just grinds your game to a halt for around 15 seconds every couple minutes, which gets really old really fast. So, in an attempt to escape ship dialogue, let's get into how the game ends. So, upon collecting enough treasure to pay off the debt, Olimar and Louie return to Hokate in order to enjoy a well-deserved break. Where's Louie? Oh, come on! So, returning to PNF 404, this time with the company of the president of Hokate Freight, we begin our manhunt for Louie, all the while collecting even more treasure. Eventually, we find Louie trapped within a cave where he is either captured or actively controlling the final boss of the game, the Titan Dweevil. Louie may be actively trying to kill Olimar here, which is surprisingly expected. There's not a whole lot going on in that head of his aside from malice. So, eventually, and I do mean eventually, this fight is grueling, especially when you only have 3 Pikmin. We kill the Titan Dweevil, as well as collect all remaining treasures, and then we are finally able to leave PNF 404 once again, this time with Louie, as we head back to Hokate. And now that we have the main game of Pikmin 2 complete, let's quickly go through the game's side modes, because I haven't put myself through enough mental anguish yet. First up is the 2-player mode, which seems like a fun multiplayer mode which pits you and your friends against each other to see who can collect the most marbles the fastest. Now, this is neat and all, but I can't really say much more on it because I lack what we in the torturing ourselves via Pikmin 2 business call Pikmin pals. Therefore, I have no one to play against, but that is alright. If you're like me and have no Pikmin pals, there is also a single-player challenge mode which involves you going through stages in order to collect as many treasures as you can within a time limit. The more treasure in the least amount of time means a higher score. And if you complete all 30 challenges, you are rewarded with a new piece of Pikmin 2 story, labeled Louie's Dark Secret, where it is revealed that there was no ravenous space bunny which ate all the golden Pikpik carrots that put Hokate Freight in the debt. It was Louie. See, I told you, malice. So, with all that being said, Pikmin 2's legacy is one of extreme difficulty. It really revives Nintendo's old school game design by making a sequel for only players who have really mastered the first game. Except, this isn't 1987 anymore. This is the 21st century where we don't like difficult things. So excuse me while I have a mental episode over what I just experienced. Anyway, in total, Pikmin 2 sold just over 1 million copies, which isn't great, but for a late GameCube game, isn't horrible. And as I said earlier, Pikmin 2 has been re-released a handful of times, usually in conjunction with Pikmin 1, such as on the Wii in 2009. Everywhere except for here in the States, we had to wait until 2012 for that, as well as on the Switch in 2023. However, in my eyes, these ports aren't nearly as good as the GameCube original. Now, yes, they do run better, and at least on the Switch it's in HD, but they removed all the licensing from the treasures in these versions. Duracell? No, that's Super Battery now. Take that, Berkshire Hathaway. Pikmin 2 doesn't have to pay you a cent. But anyway, moving on from Pikmin 2, we get to jump a whopping 9 years into the future, skipping an entire console generation until the year 2013 and the Wii U cross paths. Good lord, Pikmin 3 took its sweet time being released. Because of course, a new Pikmin game couldn't release on an actually successful console. It has to be released on whatever this thing is. I'm sorry, Wii U, I didn't mean it like that. Anyway, instead of following Captain Olimar and his Hokatation buddies, Pikmin 3 follows Alf, Brittany, and Charlie from the planet of Kopai, which is facing famine due to a population boom. This leads our trio of captains to discover PNF 404 in their attempt to find a planet with an abundance of food to save Kopai. Oh yeah, and they crash land, which separates all the captains. So, starting as Alf, you save both Brittany and Charlie with the help of the Pikmin, and together you collect fruit scattered around the planet's surface. No need to worry about caves, because they aren't here this time. Now, the fruit in Pikmin 3 are the main collectible of the game, replacing the treasures of Pikmin 2, as well as helping bring back a time limit similar to Pikmin 1. How do they do this? Well, at the end of every day, you consume a canister of juice, which is acquired by collecting fruit. Run out of juice, it's game over. But if you collect more fruit, you can expand your juice stockpile, meaning that you have the ability to continually push the time limit out as long as you continue to collect fruit, making Pikmin 3's time limit much more generous and less anxiety-inducing to new players than Pikmin 1's was. The return of the time limit, as well as the removal of caves, once again creates a sense of urgency, as mastering multitasking with your 3 captains becomes much more crucial to completing as much as you can in one day. Which, can I say, thank God I missed that in Pikmin 2. Something else Pikmin 3 improves on is balance, as enemies are no longer as likely to absolutely murder every Pikmin in sight with unrelenting bloodlust. Still possible, but not as guaranteed as it was in Pikmin 2. Also, environmental hazards are not nearly as deadly as they once were, so say goodbye to your entire team getting instantly wiped out due to electricity, now it only stuns them. But okay, now that we've discussed how the world was changed in Pikmin 3, let's see how the Pikmin themselves have been changed. Well, as usual, the basic red, yellow, and blue Pikmin remain the same as they were in the previous game. Except for the yellow Pikmin, who regained the ability to carry bomb rocks. Pikmin 3 also gave that ability to every single Pikmin type, so 2 new types of Pikmin were introduced in Pikmin 3, the first of them being the Rock Pikmin, which is just a rock. And as a rock, they can break through crystals found throughout the world, do an insane amount of damage when thrown, as well as resist being crushed or stabbed by enemies. However, due to them being, well, a rock, they are unable to latch on to enemies like other Pikmin types. And our second new type of Pikmin is the Winged Pikmin, which, as the name implies, is a Pikmin that can fly. This makes them actually really useful, as they can carry items over obstacles, including water, which makes them really nice in the more water-heavy areas of the game. However, given that they are pretty small and unintimidating, they do only around half the damage of your average Pikmin. And unlike the purple and white Pikmin in Pikmin 2, the rock and winged Pikmin do get their own onions, which is really nice. Speaking of, what are purple and white Pikmin up to in Pikmin 3? So, purple and white Pikmin were mostly removed from Pikmin 3, only being present in the side modes in a significantly nerfed form. Specifically when it comes to the purple Pikmin, who got their damage brought down to red Pikmin level, and they can no longer stun enemies when thrown. But it wasn't only the purples that got nerfed, because the white Pikmin now do similar damage to that of the winged Pikmin. Man, that wasn't very cool of you, Nintendo. Hashtag justice for the purple and white Pikmin. Anyway, now that we've once again figured out our Pikmin army, got our captains back together, and collected plenty of fruit, what exactly is keeping us on PNF 404? Well, that would be the lack of a cosmic drive key, which was lost when the Copites crashed. So, exploring the many areas of PNF 404, you defeat various bosses and collect numerous pieces of technology, which allows you to pinpoint the location of the drive key. That is, until you get contacted by a familiar face. That of Louie. Oh god. Anyway, Louie's been captured by whatever the heck this thing is, so defeating it, we save Louie and bring him aboard our ship. Only for him to steal all of our juice and escape. And explode. I see that my point continues to stand. Anyway, we quickly grab some fruit to get a tiny bit of juice and then track down Louie, who is once again captured by a giant monster who we once again beat to bring Louie back to the ship. Don't worry, he gets tied up this time. He also informs us that Olimar is also on PNF 404 and happens to have the exact drive key that we're looking for. So tracking down Olimar to the formidable oak, we find that he's been captured by... What on God's green earth is that thing? Well, that would be the Plasm Wraith, Pikmin 3's final boss, and in my eyes, the most interesting boss of the Pikmin series, and by far one of the best designed bosses in any game I can think of. So anyway, we carry Olimar through this giant labyrinth, all while avoiding the Plasm Wraith, defeat it in combat, free Olimar, regain the Cosmic Drive Key, and return to Kopai with the fruit needed to save the planet. We also drop Olimar and Louie off on Hocotate because their ship is kinda sorta dead. But alright, enough partying. We have ourselves some side modes to cover. And to begin, we may as well start out with the multiplayer mode, which once again, I can't fully enjoy without Pikmin pals. But oh boy, I can tell you, this will be pretty fun with a buddy. Titled Bingo Battle, the goal is to get yourself a bingo by collecting items, all the while attempting to stop your opponent from obtaining a bingo by stealing the items they need. Honestly, this is way cooler than the simple get more marbles than your opponent style of multiplayer, and in my eyes, is by far the coolest multiplayer mode in the Pikmin series. But alright, enough with that. On to more solo-oriented game modes, which brings us to Mission Mode. Consisting of 3 modes, we have Collect Treasures, which has you collecting treasures with a limited amount of Pikmin within a time limit to earn a high score. Battle Enemies, which is the same thing, but we get as many Pikmin as we want, and we battle enemies instead of collecting treasure, as the name implies. And Boss Battle, which is literally just fighting the bosses from the main story mode again. Now, this may sound pretty simple, and well, it is, but one of the coolest things about Mission Mode is that it actually received DLC in late 2013, which added in new levels. Now, given that the Wii U eShop closed down a few years ago, we can no longer purchase this DLC. However, don't fret, because these DLC levels were preserved via Pikmin 3 Deluxe on Nintendo Switch. And speaking of the Switch version, it has an exclusive side mode not present in the original release of Pikmin 3. Titled Side Stories, it features 2 campaigns. First off is Olimar's Assignment, which follows Olimar and Louie exploring PNF 404 prior to the events of Pikmin 3, repaying yet another debt racked up by Hocotate Freight. I don't think Louie was the issue this time, but I mean, it's always a possibility. Our second campaign sees us once again follow Olimar and Louie, this time after the events of Pikmin 3, as they are sent back to PNF 404 by the president of Hocotate Freight to retrieve and repair their old ship. Yep, that party was fun while it lasted. Well, anyway, at the end of the day, Pikmin 3 on the Wii U sold nearly 1.3 million units, making it the 4th best-selling Pikmin game, and one of the best-selling Wii U games. Again, similar story to all previous Pikmin games, over 1 million units is a success for a system that flopped. Over the years, Pikmin 3 has become a favorite among the community, as it is faithful to the original Pikmin games in both gameplay and environment, all the while being a great entry point into the franchise due to it being one of the more balanced games within the series. Unlike Pikmin 2, have I mentioned how hard that game is? And although Pikmin 3 saw meteoric success on the Wii U, this success would balloon into another 2.4 million units being sold due to Pikmin 3 Deluxe on the Nintendo Switch releasing in 2020, which sits as the 2nd best-selling Pikmin game. But if we combine the sales of both the Wii U and the Switch versions of this game, we find that during its time on the market, Pikmin 3 has sold 3.7 million units, making it the best-selling Pikmin game. And I'm honestly really glad it saw so much success, as it truly deserves it for bringing the Pikmin series back after such a long hiatus from the GameCube era. And man, I bet after the fairly decent performance of Pikmin 3, Nintendo decided that a 9-year wait in between games was dumb and shortly released Pikmin 4, right? No? 10 years this time? Crap. But hey, at least it wasn't a complete Pikmin drought during the decade-long wait for Pikmin 4. We actually got 2 spin-off games during the wait. First up was Hey Pikmin, released in 2017 for 3DS. Now, this game is weird due to it releasing at the tail end of Nintendo's Everything Has to Be a 2D Platformer phase from the mid-2010s, which mainly impacted Nintendo's more mainstay games such as Mario, but it also infected some other franchises. Case in point, Pikmin. Now, aside from it being a 2D platformer, what else do I have to say about it? Well, you collect treasures. All the Pikmin from Pikmin 3 return. It's the only Pikmin game to have amiibo support, which works with the only Pikmin amiibo. Olimar gets a jetpack. Yep, that's really all I have to say about Hey Pikmin. It's a fine enough game that I'm just not very familiar with, but I've played enough of it to know that it just isn't for me. Though, a game that I am much more familiar with is Pikmin Bloom, released in 2021 for mobile devices. Now, Pikmin Bloom can be summed up by simply saying it's a Pikmin version of Pokemon Go. And just like Pokemon Go, you walk around the real world and collect creatures to build up your virtual army. However, unlike Pokemon Go, where you have to go out and catch wild Pokemon, in Pikmin Bloom you'll find seedlings while out and about, and by walking a certain distance, you will grow a new Pikmin. You can find seedlings for all types of Pikmin which have appeared up to this point in the series, except for Bulbmin, but we don't discuss Bulbmin. Though, the coolest thing about these seedlings is that depending on where you found it, it will have a different piece of apparel on, which is really the whole point of Pikmin Bloom. Collect Pikmin with all kinds of apparel on. What else does Pikmin Bloom have? Well, you can find mushrooms scattered around at notable locations, which you can destroy with other players for rewards such as fruit, which you can also find throughout the world, both of which can give you a postcard depicting where you found them. You can also plant flowers while you walk, which expedites the growing process, uncovers new seedlings and fruit, as well as helps grow these big flowers, which can give you more fruit to collect. Now, this is dandy and all, but I do have one complaint with Pikmin Bloom, and it's that it's a very uninvolved game, which, if we compare it to Pokemon Go again, the involved nature of catching Pokemon makes you feel like you're really becoming a Pokemon master. In Pikmin Bloom, you don't exactly feel like you're becoming a Pikmin master. It's just a pedometer with a little extra pizzazz, including a wrap-up of your day, which is pretty cool. However, with this one fairly major complaint, I'd be lying if I didn't admit I've been playing a lot of this game over the last few months, mostly because you can get a lot done when walking to and from class. Well, has our decade of anticipation ended yet? Because I'm getting kind of bored with a 3DS and mobile phone spin-off. Oh, we finally hit 2023? Thank the Lord! So, Pikmin 4, a 2023 game released on Nintendo Switch. This here is actually the first Pikmin game that I got upon its release. Well, unless you want to count my 11th hour purchase of Pikmin 3 Deluxe as upon release. Anyway, we are once again following Captain Olimar in a slight retelling of Pikmin 1's story where he crash lands on PNF 404 and discovers the Pikmin. But, alongside the Pikmin, he befriends a space dog named Moss, which is kinda weird, but alright, we'll roll with it. Anyway, Olimar winds up collecting enough ship parts to place an intergalactic SOS call to the Rescue Corps, who can help him escape the planet. Who then also crash on the planet. Can we please get some asteroid safety lessons here? This is way too common of an occurrence. Anyway, this leads to the Rescue Corps rookie, aka your custom-made character, to rescue the members of the Rescue Corps, as well as Olimar, and whomever else happens to find themselves shipwrecked on PNF 404. Can't be that many people, right? So we land on the planet, meet up with a member of the Rescue Corps, as well as get a space dog of our own named Ochi, and learn that in order to traverse the planet and help the castaways, we need a substance called Sparklium. How do we get Sparklium? Well, by collecting treasures, of course. And of course, if we're collecting treasures, we also need caves to explore, which are scattered across the planet, which may contain treasures, castaways, and even some bosses. So, if it wasn't obvious enough, Pikmin 4 takes much of its core gameplay from Pikmin 2, minus the difficulty, which, thank God, that was left in the past. This also means that Pikmin 4 has no time limit. However, they did tweak the caves attached so that the time no longer stands still while in them. Instead, it moves at 1/6 its normal rate, which gives some sort of urgency to your gameplay, I suppose. However, something Pikmin 4 does better than Pikmin 2 is it doesn't neglect the normal areas in favor of caves, because this game introduces some really neat areas. Now, I haven't really discussed areas in Pikmin so far because although there are some that are really good and charming, they all kind of boil down to the same basic nature vibe. Now, Pikmin 4 shakes this up by introducing us to more built-up areas, such as a campground or the inside of a house. And these areas also introduce neat mechanics, such as the tide receding in the beach level, or Moss kidnapping your Pikmin in the house level. Wait a minute, Moss is Olimar's dog. Why is she kidnapping your Pikmin? Well, while exploring, you may come across Moss, accompanied by this leafy freak. This is actually Olimar, who has been transformed into a modernized version of that creepy Olimar Pikmin hybrid from the bad ending of Pikmin 1, now called a Leafling. Wait a minute, does this mean Pikmin 1 has alternate timelines, and Pikmin 4 isn't just a retelling of Pikmin 1, but is instead just the aftermath of the bad ending from the first game, creating some hellish timeline shenanigans that we have to deal with? We're gonna forget I ever brought that up and quietly shove it under the nearest rug. Anyway, when coming across Olimar, or I suppose Leafamar, he will challenge you to a Dandori battle, which sees you compete against him to collect more items in a limited amount of time. In the end, whoever earns the most points wins. This is not too dissimilar to the other Leaflings you can find while exploring, who will request you complete a Dandori challenge. Rather than competing against the Leafling, you are instead challenged to collect as many items as possible within the time limit. Now, I hear you all asking, what exactly is Dandori? Well, do you remember all the way back when I was describing the weird cake analogy of Pikmin's core gameplay and discussed multitasking? Well, Pikmin 4 finally gave that a more proper name, and that name is Dandori. And due to us having used Dandori already for 3 separate games, we've mastered it to such an extent that these Leaflings are so impressed with our skills that they faint, allowing us to rescue them. But what do we do with these Leaflings upon rescuing them? Well, we cure them, of course. Well, okay, how do we do that? Night expeditions. That's right, 22 years of precedent thrown out the window because we can now hang out on PNF 404 at night. During these night expeditions, you have to protect these things called luminals from some pretty angry creatures, and if you successfully do so, you can collect some glow sap, which can be made into a Leafling antidote. But how do you defend these luminals, I hear you ask? Well, with a new type of Pikmin, of course. Though, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's discuss the returning Pikmin types first. Of which we can count all 7 types of Pikmin, including the purple and the white Pikmin, which are no longer locked behind a side mode and are now integral parts of the main game. And for the first time in the series, no substantial changes were made to their abilities. Well, except for the purples, which have their stun ability given back to them, but hey, let's go! Yellow Pikmin didn't get screwed over! And just like the last 2 games, Pikmin 4 introduced 2 new types of Pikmin to the series. First of which being the Ice Pikmin, which have the ability to freeze enemies, and more importantly water, which allows other types of Pikmin to cross it, both of which being fairly overpowered all things considered. And now for our second type, Glow Pikmin, which are exclusive to night missions, are immune to all hazards, kind of like the Bulbmin, but you know the drill with those by now. As well as having the ability to create a giant glowing ball of Pikmin which stuns and swarms enemies. Now, these guys are pretty overpowered, which is why you can't use them outside of night missions. Though you can use them in caves by utilizing glow seeds, which you get at the end of night missions. However, they can't leave the cave with you, so it all balances out in the end. This also means that unlike the Ice Pikmin, which do receive their own onion, the Glow Pikmin don't receive one and rely on the Luminals. And speaking of onions, Pikmin 4 makes quite a few changes to them, beginning with the fact that the purple and white Pikmin now get an onion after being deprived of the right in Pikmin 2. Now, the ability to have unlimited amounts of whatever Pikmin type you want may sound a tad overpowered, so that's why Nintendo made some changes to the onions, which I'm not sure anyone actually enjoys. First is the fact that you can only have 3 types of Pikmin on the field at any time, in addition to the fact that you don't get the ability to have 100 Pikmin on the field immediately like in the older games. You now start off with only having 20 Pikmin on the field, but if you collect enough of these things called Flarlix, you can eventually upgrade the onion to allow 100 Pikmin on the field. And speaking of upgrading, Pikmin 4 really enjoyed introducing upgrades into the series. This includes upgrades which you can buy for yourself by using raw materials which you collect while out and about, as well as upgrades for Ochi which can be unlocked by saving more castaways. Wait a minute, upgrades for Ochi? You haven't even brought up how Ochi interacts with the gameplay. Well, my faithful virtual Pikmin pals, I did that on purpose, because Ochi is the thing which utterly shatters any semblance of balance Pikmin 4 has. To begin, Ochi functions as the second captain of Pikmin 4, so he is always with you. But unlike your normal captain, he can carry items, attack enemies, and carry Pikmin on his back. Now, all this doesn't sound too horribly overpowered, but we haven't fully upgraded Ochi yet because it gets really broken. To begin with his ability to carry items, he can count as 100 Pikmin when carrying items, which completely eliminates one of the things that made Purple Pikmin special. Second is the ability to attack enemies, which is probably the least overpowered thing because despite him doing way more damage than any one Pikmin could dream of, there is only one of him, so it isn't as effective. And now onto the third and in my eyes the most overpowered ability Ochi has, the ability to carry Pikmin, which itself isn't bad, but combining it with the rush and swim ability makes it completely overpowered. Beginning with Rush, if you make Ochi charge an enemy while carrying Pikmin, they will launch off his back onto the enemy, which, if the charge itself doesn't instantly kill the enemy, the horde of Pikmin being launched at them will. And then second, we have the Swim ability, which allows Ochi to carry Pikmin across water. Well, that was fast ice, Pikmin. One of your main abilities has already been made irrelevant. Now, despite Ochi completely breaking Pikmin 4's balance, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have fun with him. Yes, he does remove much of the game's challenge, but it's just really fun to have the Pikmin equivalent of a tactical nuke sitting in your back pocket when needed. Well, with all that being said, we probably should get back to finding Leafamar, eh? Well, I mean, I found him in pretty much every location we visited, even in this safe. Well, let's Dandori his butt, and oh, he fainted, and Moss fled. Well, that was easy. So we take Olimar back to the ship, cure him, and finally leave PNF 404. Man, that was a nice quick adventure. I hope nothing goes awry while we're gone. Oh, are you kidding me? Again? Oh yeah, Ochi also gets sick due to him being exposed to PNF 404's atmosphere for too long, causing him to grow a leaf on his tail. So we head back to the plant to find a cure for Ochi, battle Louie a handful of times in Dandori, make him abandon Moss, and discover that the only way to cure Ochi is to get the DNA of a giant space dog. So, going and finding this giant dog, we discover the ancient Sire Hound, and you know, I don't know why I didn't expect this. Anyway, we defeat the Ancient Sire Hound in probably one of the coolest boss fights in the series, extract its DNA from its collar, cure Ochi, leave Moss behind, and finally leave PNF 404 for good this time. And despite the fact that we left PNF 404 and completed our adventure, that doesn't mean that we're done with Pikmin 4 because, as usual, we have side modes to cover. And to begin, we once again have ourselves a multiplayer mode, this time titled Dandori Battle. And for the first time in the series, you don't have to have Pikmin pals to enjoy the multiplayer because you can play against a CPU, which is really nice. But alright, how does this mode play? Well, you remember when we talked about Dandori battles during the single player adventure? Yeah, this is literally just more of that, which is kind of boring. But hey, don't fret. We also have a second side mode in Pikmin 4, which can be accessed by talking to Olimar in the hub area of Pikmin 4. By doing this, we unlock Olimar's shipwrecked tail, which is kind of just a shortened and modernized version of Pikmin 1. We have 30 ship parts to collect with a time limit of 15 days. We only have access to the original 3 types of Pikmin, and there are no caves to deal with. The only major deviation from it being just a remake of Pikmin 1 is the fact that it reuses locations from Pikmin 4, as well as the fact that we get to see Olimar meet Moss. Wait a minute, does this mean that Pikmin 4 isn't just the aftermath of Pikmin 1's bad ending, but instead the timeline splits due to Olimar meeting Moss? I really need to stop doing this to myself. Anyway, the story ends with Olimar collecting all of his ship parts and escaping the planet, only for Moss to sneak aboard and start suffering from a similar sickness as Ochi later will, which forces Olimar back to the planet, which leads to his life support system failing, and him getting transformed into his Leafling form that we find him in during the main game. However, this mode isn't only present just for the context of the game's story. It reveals a secret Dandori-filled cave, which is how you acquire the white and purple onions. I just want to make it known that this cave sucks. Anyway, with all that being said, let's take a look at Pikmin 4's sales, and oh, that's pretty good. I mean, 3.48 million is pretty average when it comes to Switch games, but for a Pikmin game, this is really good, and if we count Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 3 Deluxe as separate games, Pikmin 4 becomes the best-selling Pikmin game. Which is great because due to Pikmin 4 appealing to the newcomers to the series, it means that the Pikmin series finally has a sizable fandom instead of a tiny but loyal following it had gathered over the last 3 games in the last 2 decades. And you can kind of tell Nintendo had the idea of bringing newcomers into the Pikmin series with this game due to the game's relative ease compared to prior entries, with more instruction on what to do and overpowered elements such as Ochi. And it's due to this ease and overpowered elements that I have seen quite a bit of hate levied towards this game in more recent times. Which I kind of understand, but I don't think calling it the worst Pikmin game is warranted. I also have a bit of a hunch some of this hate towards Pikmin 4 from parts of the Pikmin community has a bit to do with jealousy that they no longer have the series to themselves anymore, similar to when a TV show becomes incredibly popular and the original fanbase gets mad. But keep in mind, this is purely a hunch and I have no data to back this up, so let's just move on. Hopefully the popularity of Pikmin 4 sparks some renewed interest in the Pikmin series over at Nintendo. Could we get a new Pikmin game before I start growing gray hairs? We can only hope. Well, I believe that officially covers all 4 Pikmin games over the series' 2-decade lifespan, including the 2 random spin-off games. And man, it has been a journey, hasn't it? Anyway, let's rank the games.
At number not ranking, Hey Pikmin and Pikmin Bloom.
Due to how different these games are from the main 4 games, I don't think I can accurately rank them. But if I were to wrap up my thoughts, Hey Pikmin is a fine game stifled by Nintendo's weird 2D obsession of the time, and Pikmin Bloom is an entertaining time if you're doing a fair bit of walking. Okay, now.
Number 4, Pikmin 2.
It's a good game with an interesting gimmick with all the caves and treasures, but the difficulty is just insane. Like, who thought electricity instantly killing all of your Pikmin was a good idea? And due to this difficulty, Pikmin 2 is the only Pikmin game that I don't see myself returning to for quite some time. Don't get me wrong, it's still a really good game, just really tiring. Also, Louis perpetrating enough heinous acts to fill a multinational agreement's pretty funny, so Pikmin 2 gets a couple extra points there for introducing him.
Number 3, Pikmin 4.
It takes the interesting gimmicks of Pikmin 2 and makes the game not feel like the most immersive Guantanamo Bay simulator. Ochi is also a fun addition to the game, but as I said, he shatters any semblance of balance found within this game, which wasn't much to begin with, might I add. Overall, I enjoy Pikmin 4 a great deal, but I don't know, it's just kind of missing that same charm factor you get from the other games.
Number 2, Pikmin 1.
Man, they knocked it out of the park with the very first Pikmin game. And yes, it may be rough around the edges and pretty bare compared to later games, but the strict 30-day time limit to find all of your ship parts adds such a fun strategy element to the game that later games sadly lack. Alright, anyway, now on to my favorite Pikmin game.
Number 1, Pikmin 3.
Man, this is such a good game, and talk about a polished game, because everything is more or less balanced, and all of the game's functions work flawlessly with each other. And a couple things I didn't discuss when going in depth on this game, the locations you visit while playing Pikmin 3, for some reason, are easily the most charming within the entire series. And also, all the bosses you fight throughout the game are just amazing. And I'm not just talking about the Plasm Wraith. I'm talking about all the normal bosses, from the Armored Maudab all the way to the Quaggled Myrclops. Well, maybe with the exception of the Scornet Maestro. That one kind of blows. Now, my only real complaint with Pikmin 3 is that it's a pretty easy game, which allows you to get through it pretty fast, but I really don't care. Those short playthroughs are a blast, each and every time, which is why despite me not knowing Pikmin 3 as long as I have other games, it has quickly become one of my favorite games ever. And that goes for the Pikmin series as a whole. Despite me only playing the series for a handful of years, it has quickly become not only one of my favorite Nintendo franchises, but also one of my favorite gaming franchises.
Well then, that was one heck of a documentary, all about... And in total, I think I only said Pikmin around 285 times. Yeah, please don't turn that into a drinking game. But man, let me tell you, playing a lot of Pikmin in conjunction with being outside has driven me to near insanity. Like if a Pikmin can be a flower and a creature at the same time. Like what's real? What is a creature if a Pikmin can be both a plant and an animal at the same time? Like, who bloody knows? Tell me, do you have a soul?